friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Katey Flowers and I am here with yet again another tag that I stole from another community here on YouTube that I love to watch. And that is the no disclaimers book tag, which obviously happens over on BookTube, where people talk about their unpopular opinions, their edgy opinions, their controversial opinions about books. But of course, I've reframed the questions and I'm bringing to you today the no disclaimers tarot tag. Obviously, this is going to hit on some sticky points and not everyone is going to agree with me. If you're not here for this sort of video, please don't watch. Remember, this is no disclaimers. The whole point is to be opinionated. And as this is the no disclaimers tag, I'm going to avoid desperately to over-explain myself and dive right in. Question number 1. What trends or tropes in tarot decks annoys you the most? I have a few. I think one is decks that sort of proclaim to be diverse or representative and then have like 3 people of color and maybe 1 fat person in it. That annoys me. I think obviously it's sort of false advertising to begin with. But it's also like attempting to profit off a really important conversation that's happening in the tarot world and I think in the larger world at the moment, which feels really yucky to me. And I do think that hyping up the level of representation in decks and in art is a trend at the moment, and I think it's a problem. As for tropes specifically in tarot decks, like that we see on individual cards, if you followed me for a while, you'll know that one that I keep pointing out is the pregnant empress, especially because more often than not, this pregnant empress is usually conventionally attractive, very young, and very white. The reliance on the imagery of pregnancy as sort of just being the go-to imagery and symbolism for creativity and abundance, I think it's lazy. It's so overdone and I'm tired of seeing it. And I also think that because we've seen this imagery of the empress as just a pregnant woman so much, the idea of what the empress can be or could be has become more narrow as well. An empress is someone who is in a position of leadership and ruling, and that is just not what we see in so many of the empress cards that we have. Why do we not see more pregnant people in other cards? I don't know. I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it. And I guess with thousands and thousands of decks on the market at this point, do we not have enough pregnant empresses? Have these artists not thought of any other way that they could represent this archetype? I don't know. It's lazy, it's boring, it's reductive, it's old, it's done, it's tired, and I'm annoyed. Question number 2, which deck do you feel is overrated? Now, this is going to sound like a disclaimer, but I promise it's not. It's just a genuine opinion. I really don't feel that strongly about decks being overrated. To me, it's more just an awareness that my personal taste differs from many other people's personal tastes. But a couple of the decks that come to mind when I think of decks that are hugely popular that I kind of don't get. One more recent would definitely be the Dark Mansions Tarot. I don't like some of the choices in that deck. A lot of the other choices feel very just Rider-Waite-Smith rehashing to me in a different type of art style, and the art style is not one that I'm really drawn to. I feel like the Wild Unknown is a bit of an easy punching bag at this point. Like if you were around in the tarot community in the early 2010s, you know that this deck was huge. It wasn't just huge, it was different, it was funky, it was fresh. It was new. I understand why people were drawn to it. Just for me, it doesn't do anything for me. And then I guess I am always baffled by out-of-print decks that are going for hundreds and hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. 2 recent examples that come to mind are the Tarot Delphi and the Bonestone Tarot. They both seem like beautiful decks. Just to me, the sort of price that people are not only charging, but others are actually paying for, I could never. There are decks that I love that have been on my wish list for literally years, and I have seen come up for a high price tag. But I cannot pay that much for a deck of 78 cards. I can't do it. I don't care how much I love the deck. I cannot do it. I don't know. I mean, think of all the other cool things you could buy with that amount of money. I don't think any deck is worth that amount. The only decks that I can kind of start to understand are literally like antique decks that become like collectible and valuable in like a more historic sort of way. But decks that were released last year and just had a limited run, I could never. Question number 3, what are your least favorite decks you've seen since joining TarotTube? So for this one, I'm thinking about decks that I have seen pop up quite a bit on TarotTube that I would not have been exposed to had I not been on TarotTube. And I think the decks that come to mind and I think I'm going to cop a bit of flack for this because I know some of these are well beloved, but the whole like asylum aesthetic decks, nope, not for me. I personally find them offensive. I really do. As someone with a lived experience of complex and severe mental illness, who has been in psychiatric hospital several times, who I know, had I existed in the world 50, 100 years ago, would have been in one of these asylums and treated very differently to how I'm treated today, although I still experience a wealth of discrimination, thank you very much. And they're sort of marketed as quirky, as spooky, as interesting. Like, honestly, I think it's really kind of gross. So a couple of the decks that I'm thinking of are, and I know this one's a fan favorite and it grosses me out, is the Mildred Payne Oracle. Another is the Madhouse Tarot. Just nope, nope, nope. It's this weird, almost like exotification, fetishization, romanticization of a really horrific, terrifying past for so many people, and a fairly recent one at that. And although, yes, these asylums don't tend to exist too much anymore, the psychiatric industry does have some pretty dark elements to it that continue to impact people in similar ways. Question number 4, what is one card that has ruined a deck for you? 2 decks came to mind for this question. The first was, and I can't remember if it was like the 10 of Pentacles or the King of Pentacles or something in the Harmonious Tarot. I got that deck through a trade or something or other, I can't remember, a long time ago after seeing a few of the cards, which I thought were quite pretty. Had a look at the deck, found that card, and I could not with that deck. And another more recent one is the Devil in the Slow Tarot. I remember originally seeing that deck and thinking the artwork was gorgeous, but then seeing that the only fat person represented in that deck is the Devil, representative of like gluttonous behavior. Can we spell fat phobia with a capital F, please? Question number 5. Which out-of-print deck do you wish was still in print? For me, I have 3. The Cosmic Cycles Tarot. I'm so annoyed at myself that I didn't jump on this originally. I mentioned it in a video about decks that I had on my wish list, and I didn't jump on it when I should have, and now I don't know that I'll ever be able to get it, but I love the look of that deck. The Collective Tarot, it's an oldie. I think it was released about 10, 15 years ago, but that has always been one that I really like the artwork of. I like the ethos behind. It just looks really beautiful. I don't know how well it's dated, but it is one that I'm always going to keep my eye out for. And then a very Australian one is the Granny Smith. This is a weird, quirky little thing, but I don't know, it does something to me. And if I ever manage to get my hands on that one, I would squeal. Question number 6, what are some of your tarot pet peeves? I suppose I've already mentioned quite a few of them, but I think in terms of like the TarotTube community, my biggest pet peeves are always around like the shoulds and like the rules and like the elitism that I see all too often. People telling people that they have to read with reversals, that they should read this way, that they can't read unless they do this one particular thing. And there's also a lot of elitism that is sort of tangled up in a similar sort of elitism that we find in like high occultism versus like low magic, that sort of stuff. There is no one school of thought. There is no rule book. Like, just stop with the elitism and the shoulds because it's getting old. Question number 7. What are some decks that you feel should have more recognition? Firstly, I can't answer this question without acknowledging the fact that representative, celebratory, real decks by marginalized creators do not get nearly enough recognition from the community as a whole, but also from publishers. If I'm going to be more specific about a couple of decks that I think deserve more recognition, because I have not stopped talking about them for years, and they are 2 of my favorite, it is both of Laura Bowen's decks, the Saltwater Reader cards and the Dreamtime Reading cards. I feel like they're getting a bit of a cult following, and I know in Australia especially they're very popular. I'm not saying that people don't know them or people, don't love them. I know there's plenty of you who do. But I don't know, I get the sense that because they're made by an Aboriginal artist, they're published by an Australian company, I think a lot of people overseas just sort of think that they're Australian specific, and they're not. You can use them and enjoy them regardless of where you live, and I love them. They're my favorite. So I wish everybody loved them as much as I do. And question number 8, what are your thoughts on negative reviews? It's funny because I feel like, as with many conversations on TarotTube, the discussion around negativity sort of like goes around in circles. And for a while, people were like really annoyed at TarotTube as if we ever said anything mean about any deck, because they took that as we were like bullying the creator or telling people who love the deck that they were wrong. And then it feels like we've sort of like done a 180, and at the moment everybody wants us to be saying only negative things, and if we say something positive it's because we're biased. And I do recall saying something about this, I think in one of my unpopular opinion videos quite a while ago. I think it was more in regards to like the conversation around anti-hauls being inherently negative, which I disagree with. But essentially my opinion has not changed. And that is, I am all for a variety of opinions, and I think the most important thing is to be transparent and honest. My channel is for me and my viewers. It's not free advertising, free marketing for deck creators and deck publishers. Whether I'm sent a deck for a review, whether I purchase a deck with my own money, I have no obligation to be positive about a deck. The only obligation I have is to my own integrity and to my viewers. On top of that, my negative may very well be your positive, so if I'm not being honest about that, how will you ever know? I've also personally found that often my more negative videos have sparked the most interesting conversations. I guess I'm not out here trying to lean either way. I'm not trying to come out here and be overtly positive. I'm not trying to come out here and shit on stuff just for the sake of shitting on stuff and looking edgy. I just try to make my content and especially my reviews as useful as possible, and I try to do that by being specific about what I like, what I don't like, and why I do or don't like those things. Because if I do that while also acknowledging my own biases and preferences, that gives you the best frame of reference for whether something is going to work for you, whether you're going to like it. Having said all that, more often than not, the decks and books that I bring into my life, I've already sort of vetted, you know, like I've looked at them online, I've read the blurb, I may have watched a video, I've done a little bit of research at the very least. So I'm sort of filtering out the stuff I know I'm just like outright gonna hate most of the time. So, I mean, I think I'm pretty good at that. And if you are good at that, you're not gonna have just like negative stuff all the time on your channel, unless you're intentionally trying to do that, I guess. So a lot of the time, yes, I am more positive, but that's because I think I'm pretty good about choosing what I want to bring into my life. But I also really value being honest with you and being transparent with you. So I don't know, for me, I think negative reviews are really important. I think they're very useful. I think they help create really interesting conversations on TarotTube. They often help us learn more about ourselves and about the world. And sometimes, even if the negative review is coming from a much more subjective place, that can still help us make good choices about what we want to bring into our lives, whether or not we have similar preferences or differing preferences, whatever. I think negative reviews are an important part of the tarot and YouTube landscape. So that is it for my answers to the no disclaimers tarot tag. I hope you enjoyed. I know it got a little heated, but that's kind of the point of this tag. As always, you are free to disagree with me, and I welcome, nay, encourage plenty of conversation in the comments below. If you would like to do your own video response to this tag, please let me know in the comments below when you upload your video so that I can come and watch it. A big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for all of your support, and especially big thank you goes to Livia, Lynette Brown, Laurie, and Ian Yitzhak for their very, very generous support of me and my channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the comments below and in the next video. Until then, so much love. Bye!